As a child, I yearned for the spec evo, so now I'm bringing you a biologically plausible reimagining of Minecraft's GHASTS. Hey everyone! GHASTS are another one of those iconic Minecraft enemies, with a creepy behavior and a real cool appearance that should be fun to speculate on. But no organism lives in a vacuum, so we'll be taking a look not only at them, but also at the environment they live and thrive in. Please like, hype and subscribe if you'd like to support this craft of mine. And now, without further ado, let's get started! We live in a fascinating world, and an incredibly diverse biota thrives both in the air above our heads and in the depths beneath our feet, adapted to conditions so removed from our own that they may at times seem completely alien. One of these organisms, despite in recent times having become much better known and even utilized by humanity, is Megaroctopus tartarus, the ghast. This huge mollusk is closely related to the common bedsheet octopus, and displays a very similar flotation sac. Where the bedsheet octopus adapted to hide and escape from predation, the ghast developed its own aggressive defense mechanisms, which we will study in a bit, and this allowed it to increase in size without having to worry about catching the attention of potential predators. Maintaining buoyancy at this size, however, does require quite a bit of constant gaseous exchange through its more muscular siphon, producing a characteristic whipping sound that immediately terrified the first humans who found their habitat. They retain, in many aspects, the basic anatomy of their aquatic relatives, although their arms are very reduced, as the energy and musculature required to move them at this size and in this medium is rather prohibiting. In modern ghasts, they are used only to latch onto the substrate and move food towards their mouth. These organisms are part of a huge underground biosphere known as the Nether, formed of vast cave systems, extended and connected to one another through the activity of the organisms that live within them. The Nether is composed of many different types of biomes and ecosystems, and ghasts are most common in desertic areas with very little access to underground water and high volcanic activity, particularly those with an abundance of the so-called soul sand, a special substrate characterized by its abundance of calcium and sulfur, derived from both biotic sources, such as the decay of organisms living in this environment, and abiotic ones, such as the surrounding mineral deposits. The lava and flames produced by the volcanic activity mentioned earlier even gain a blue tint from the sulfur abundance, not a unique phenomenon as we've seen before in our falls. Despite it seeming like a barren wasteland, very diverse organisms make this place their home. Fungi known as the netherwort feed on the minerals found inside these deep cave systems, shaping it as they do so, and many other organisms benefit from its presence, be it by eating it directly or by thriving on the substrate they create, including striders, divergent populations of skeleton wasps, the main food source of ghasts, and even subspecies of these which adapted to this environment, gaining a coal-black exoskeleton in the process. Ghasts thrive in this harsh environment thanks to the biomineralization of soul sand, its composing sulfur being sequestered to create a protective layer on their skin. While this could hardly be considered an armor, sulfur is a very poor conductor of heat, and thus isolates the ghast's body, protecting it from the heat in more active volcanic regions, with three gill-like projections at the sides of their mantle further helping them dissipate excess heat from their bodies. The temperature of these regions makes them very attractive to many lifeforms, and the resulting organic waste produces an abundance of saltpeter, mostly found in the form of a substance known as netherrack. Ghasts will occasionally chew on this substance, accumulating the saltpeter and traces of sulfur in order to create pellets of a compound very similar to gunpowder within their bodies. When threatened, the ghasts will shoot these pellets at other creatures using their siphon, and while by itself it packs quite a hard punch, the high temperatures and lava present in their natural habitat can lead to this substance igniting, causing explosions on impact. The eyes of the ghast, which are positioned forward to give it greater binocular vision in contrast with those of other cephalopods, make the task of aiming their projectiles a much easier matter. Travelers through this region are advised to be very mindful of this explosive defense, and particularly dexterous adventurers have been known to be able to bounce these pellets away from themselves before they explode. As one may imagine, one of the most critical adaptations these organisms needed to survive in this harsh environment involved their reproductive strategy, as, unlike other cephalopods, they could not simply leave their eggs out in the open, where the risk of dehydration is much higher. Instead, the eggs are held in a much safer place, inside the mother, in a specialized chamber where they can be protected until they are ready to hatch. These eggs are, at the same time, covered in a lustrous, sulfur-rich layer that helps isolate them from the heat. But this protection would turn out to be quite a disadvantage once our kind made their way into their habitat. All it took was for one egg-carrying ghast to be slain for these eggs to be discovered, and very soon humans began using their shiny covering, most famously as an additive in medicine and to craft ornaments. As these ghast tears, as they were colloquially known, were transported back to the outside world, many of them would end up hatching, releasing the babies. These are soft and semi-transparent, taking a while before they have developed the hard skin of the adults, and many would end up falling to the hardships of the journey or the hunger of their captors. Those that survived would often end up in the care of humans, being raised as pets and, once the possibilities were fully explored, as draft animals. Unlike wild individuals, tamed ghasts tend to be much more relaxed and social, rarely presenting hostility towards humans unless provoked. That said, the fact that these tamed ghasts will often be raised outside of their natural habitat does result in a series of health issues and deviations from the regular appearance and behavior of these animals. Unless handlers properly and carefully supplement their diet, ghasts will experience a deficiency of sulfur and potassium nitrate, the latter of which is obtained from saltpeter, and this will lead to an atrophy of the arms, which are much shorter than those of their wild relatives, as well as a much softer skin that, lacking its sulfur layer, cannot resist heat as well as it would be normal. Furthermore, their muscle and skin tissue will be less elastic, and even pulled back in more sensitive areas, exposing their pinkish ventilating structures and their beak, giving them a noticeably happy expression that leaves their beak vulnerable to the elements and causes it to be worn down faster. This same lack of nutrients, as may be expected, also leaves them without their ability to produce their characteristic fireballs, and prolonged deficiency in its developmental stages may lead to the organs involved in this process never fully maturing. Resulting from these deficiencies, tamed ghasts tend to compulsively consume edible and inedible matter in an attempt to obtain the nutrients they lack, and handlers have been known to provide them with large quantities of unpurified ice and snow, the minerals in the water somewhat alleviating their cravings. While these animals are still being utilized in this manner in modern times, more resources are available to ensure handlers can provide their ghasts with the nutrients and enrichment they require, allowing them to remain healthy despite growing away from their natural habitats. Intentional clipping of the fireball-producing structures is still a controversial issue we don't expect to be settled anytime soon, but we, for our part, oppose it entirely, and would propose that if a few fireballs freak you out, you shouldn't be trying to tame a giant floating octopus anyway. And that's it for Speculative Biology Look into Ghasts, with a special thank you to Aloe Veris, who commissioned this episode and gave me a lot of ideas to craft it. So, one of the main aspects of turning this fella into a spec evo creature involved its ability to shoot fireballs, especially since the biology of floating mollusks is something we've already explored in the past. This amazing ability, of course, had to have a good deal of chemistry involved in it, and for that to be possible, we had to take a good look at their environment to see where all of these components came from. Really, it all snowballed into a really cool and deep look at the ecology of this organism, allowing us to create a version of the Nether that I'd be very happy to revisit in the future to have more looks at other creatures in the franchise. And of course, different versions of the Hollow World have been suggested in our comments as well, which makes me wonder how expansive these new ecosystems are, and what kind of organisms might dwell in them. I know it's taken me a while to return to the world of Minecraft, so I hope y'all had fun with this episode. As always, big thanks to everyone who wanted to see it. Please let me know what other Minecraft creatures you'd like to see explored in the future. And of course, thank you to our researchers and research associates who support us through Patreon and YouTube memberships, and to Aloe Berries for commissioning this one. If you too would like to support our channel, and you have a couple bucks laying around, I'd be super grateful if you join in as well. It really helps me make these videos. And you get some nice extras like seeing all of our creatures and videos ahead of time and joining our Patreon Discord to help mold our creatures into shape. Or you can also like, subscribe, or write a comment telling me any type of creature you would like me to give the spec Evo treatment in the show. Any of those really help the channel a lot. Thank you all for watching, and chicken jockey!